Hey, fight fans, thanks for joining us, and welcome to The Weigh-In, the show that spotlights the latest MMA bouts and the topics surrounding the sport. I am Dorian, Mr. MMA Hernandez, and at my side, as always, Nathan Tyrone.
And today we're going to give you some predictions and previews for UFC Fight Night, Machida versus Rockhold. And this is happening in Newark, New Jersey this Saturday on April 18th.
And we're going to start with the first fight on the prelims, which is the number 6, Takeya Mizugaki versus Aljamain Funkmaster Sterling. This fight's going to be an interesting one, fellas. More than anything, Mizugaki was riding a 5-fight win streak up until his devastating loss to Dominic Cruz last September. So right now, he's trying to get himself back into that win column. And he's got a real true test because another striker in Sterling could really put him back on that losing streak again. Aljamain right now, overall 10-0, but in the UFC is 2-0. Wants to keep that win streak going and has a true test in front of him, Mizugaki. But my true weigh-in, I'm going to give it to Sterling. I think he's more well-rounded in the cage. He's hungrier. And Mizugaki has always shown himself to be a bruiser. He'll take too many hits in trying to get secure takedowns and win a fight that ultimately can be contested sometimes even in his stand-up.
Yeah, I think Sterling is not to be underestimated, though. Sterling is a champion in two previous promotions. And though he's relatively new to the UFC, he does have championship caliber. Now, Mizugaki is known to have fought some of the best of the UFC, Nam Pham being one of the standouts. And I'm going to have to go with you on this one, Mr. MMA. I think Mizugaki will get it. I think Mizugaki will get it in a winner's fashion by KO.
All right, next fight on there is Corey Beaston 25-8 Anderson versus Gian Villante at the 205 division, light heavyweight, folks. First of all, Anderson, you already know, 6-0 in the US overall, but in the UFC, he's only 2-0. He was the Ultimate Fighter 19 Edgar versus Penn winner. So right now, he's trying to keep that winning streak going, trying to make a name for himself, and more than anything, trying to grab that lucky win number 7. Villante, look, he fluctuates with his win-loss since joining the UFC. His highest streak of 3 was back, I think, when he was still an acquisition in Strikeforce. And right now, he's 2-2, and he's trying to break away from that. So he has a true test in front of him with Corey. But ultimately, my weigh-in, I'm going to go with Corey Anderson. No matter what, the guy is running hot. And like I said, Villante's too back and forth. Corey Anderson has a great repertoire, has a great way of changing levels too, and has that knockout power.
Yeah. And Corey Anderson, Ultimate Fighter Season 19 winner, yep. I believe. Yep. Not a slouch by any means. I'd have to say I'm going to give it to Anderson, too, just by speed alone. The kid is lightning. The kid is lightning in his fists, and I don't see an answer coming, so I'm going to call it again, maybe not the knockout, but a TKO for Anderson this time around.
All right. Wow, that's a strong prediction.
I'm hitting them strong.
All right, our next fight on the card is the number 8 ranked Ovis St. Preux versus the number 14 Patrick Durkin Cummins. And this, of course, light heavyweight, folks. I'm going to tell you right now, St. Preux has won 11 of his last 13 fights. His last fight was a first-round knockout of Shogun Rua, if anybody happened to miss that one. His only losses are to the presently number 5 ranked Ryan Bader, and Jagard Musasi, 2 elite fighters. So right now, Ovis St. Preux is definitely trying to prove that I deserve to be in the top 8, and he's got a true test in the grappler in Durkin. But now let's talk about Cummins. Everybody already knows he's riding a 3-fight win streak right now. Ever since his loss to Daniel Cormier, he's won 4 of his last 5, like I said, with that aforementioned loss to DC. And right now, more than anything, he wants to move himself in the rankings. With the win over St. Preux, that could definitely do that. But Mr. MMA has to give you his weigh-in, and my weigh-in, ultimately, I'm going to go with St. Preux. I think St. Preux, with his knocking power and with his wrestling expertise, he's going to be able to stop what Cummins does best, which is his grappling. We've seen how he is in the standing, and he's sloppy. So more than anything, we might even see the first round late knockout.
Wow. Talk about heavy predictions. I see Mr. MMA's going on it too. And I like Ovince St. Preux. Ovince St. Preux is a fighter that is impressive with his skill set and continually, in my opinion, shows growth in the cage. Patrick Cummins coming in at 3-4 in the UFC, 3 out of 4 of his last fights, winning, could prove difficult because he's a grappler. but I think Ovince St. Preux will eke it out. I don't think it's going to happen in the first round, even with some of the higher caliber grapplers like Ryan Bader. They give Ovince St. Preux a bit of a problem. I'm sure that he's worked on that, and I'm sure that we'll see that work this Saturday. And I'm going to say Ovince St. Preux also.
All right, the next fight is our main event for the prelims. It's going to feature in the light heavyweight division, the ranked number 12, Jim Miller versus Beneil Dariush. Now, I'm really interested in this fight, folks. I really like this fight. More than anything, both of these guys are willing to exchange. But let's go into the facts of it all. Miller, no matter what, is trying to avenge his loss right now, his KO loss in July of 2014. All his losses have been to elite talent: Gray Maynard, Benson Henderson, Nate Diaz, Donald Cerrone. His loss against Pat Healy was overturned due to marijuana metabolite, so that really doesn't really affect him. But that was a good fight up until then. He was thugging it out. So no matter what, that was definitely a close fought fight. Yeah, but absolutely. Ultimately, Jim Miller needs to get himself back in the win column, and more than anything, back into the contender talks, which he was so close to getting. Now let's talk about Dariush, and this is one of the reasons why I like this fight. This guy has won 4 out of his last 5 fights. He's riding a 3-fight win streak. His latest win was just right now in the middle of March against Darren Cruikshank, a very formidable striker.
Absolutely.
And more than anything, a win against Miller can not only put him in talks, but more than anything, get him in that top 15 as far as ranks. But ultimately, we got to give you the weigh-in. My weigh-in, I'm going to go with Dariush. I like Miller, don't get me wrong, but liking is not what we have to do in this business. We got to go for who we think is going to really legitimately win with his skills and with the hot run that he's going on right now, and that's Dariush. More than anything, Dariush is not on a year, almost a year-off layoff like Miller is, and more than anything, he's shown that he's able to mix it up and defend well against those grapplers.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a huge Jim Miller fan. I love Jim Miller. I love the heart that he brings. Jim Miller is a fighter's fighter. He goes in there and he wants to fight. He wants to win every single time. There's no backing down. There's no stop in Jim Miller. He has to be stopped. And it's unfortunate that he hasn't fought as well as he has. I mean, I'm going to say since the Nate Diaz fight, he really hasn't fought to the caliber to which I know he's capable. And Dariush is no slouch. Dariush is going to bring it to him. He's going to bring it to him hard. So it's going to be a good contest. I, though, have to disagree with him, Mr. MMA, on this one. I think Jim Miller's going to pull this one out. I think Jim Miller needs a big win. Jim Miller wants a big win. Jim Miller's going to get a big win.
And now on to our main card, which starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time to 5 p.m. Pacific. First fight on there is the blonde bombshells in our strawweight division. Number 8, Felice Little Bulldog Herrig versus number 11, Paige 12-gauge VanZant. This is going to be an awesome fight. No matter what, these girls are definitely going to exchange leather. Right now, you got Herrig, 23-5 kickboxing record, 10-5 MMA record, which ultimately doesn't sound all that great, but let's be honest. She's winning more than she is losing. Okay, she has won 5 of her last 6 fights. Her one loss is a decision to Tisha Torres, right? But in the UFC right now, even though she's 1-0 with that Ultimate Finale win, she right now, more than anything, shows why she's the number 8 ranking girl in the strawweight division. Not only does she want to raise her wins in the win column, but more than anything, prove that she's one of the formidable girls in the strawweight division. VanZant overall is only 4-1 in her whole MMA career, with only 1 win in the UFC octagon. So let's make sure we put into perspective, because pressure is one of those things that we deal with when a lot of these fighters deal with when being in that cage. The strawweight division is very shallow, which is kind of the reason why with only a 4-1 record, I can see why she's at 14. But let's not be honest. Let's not kid ourselves. No matter what, this girl has finishing power more than one, and age. They didn't give her a name but 12 gauge for no reason. Okay, and she definitely wants to make a case for herself, beating Felice Herrig and get herself in the top 10. My way in, though, I'm going to go with Felice Herrig. I have to go with experience more than anything. Everything about these girls is even down the line, right? Same height, same reach, same hunger. But ultimately, Herrig has 3 times more experience in the cage, and more than anything, has a lot more finishes. I'm going to have to go with Herrig on this one.
Okay, well, I like him, and I like him a lot, because in terms of MMA girls, or women rather, ladies, however you want to call it, don't give me hate mail, please. These women are stunning looking. They do not look like fighters, and maybe that's because they haven't been fighting too long. Each of them together you can add both of their careers in just a fairly short number of fights. But I'm going to disagree with you. I think the new upstart's gonna win by decision. I think there's going to be a disappointment in the fight community. I think a new person is going to reach a lot of people's radars with VanZant winning by decision.
Okay. All right. Our next fight on that card, the number 5 Cub Swanson versus the number 10 Max Blessed Holloway.
Yeah,
this is a featherweight fight that I am so looking forward to because these guys, no matter what, are going to trade leather.
Yes.
Two elite strikers. More than anything, I feel bad for Swanson because Swanson was riding a 5-fight win streak. More than anything, I felt he should have been right now being in the talks right for a title shot with Aldo. But we know why that's not happening because Aldo already beat him, before the WEC was merged into the UFC. So, you got to go with the fighter that hasn't faced Aldo, which is why McGregor in July, more than anything. But Chad Mendes just put himself on the map with that first-round knockout of Ricardo Lamas. But let's put it into perspective. Swanson's riding a 6-fight winning streak before his loss to Edgar last November. Okay, all his losses are to top-tier talent. Okay, Jens Pulver, Chad Mendes, Ricardo Lamas, Frankie Edgar, and the aforementioned champion Jose Aldo. More than anything, he wants a win, a convincing win, to put him back into the talks. And a victory over Max Holloway could really do that. But let's go into Holloway because he's definitely not any slouch in any way, shape, or form. Okay, the guy's riding a 5-fight win streak since his loss to McGregor in August of 2013, folks. Let's remember that. That's almost 2 years ago, a little under 2 years ago, okay? But since then, every single time in the cage, he has shown nothing but improvement, takedown defense. Yeah. This guy is, no matter what, he has shown why he is at the number 10 spot. Okay, right now, he has an overall record of 12-3 for a reason. His only 3 losses are top-tier talent: Dustin the Diamond Poirier, Dennis Bermudez, and the aforementioned Conor McGregor. Okay, but let's be in, more than anything right now. His last one was in February. He wants to keep that win streak going and the momentum going. And what a way to keep it going and push it with a win over Cub Swanson.
Wow. This fight in particular has got me really excited. I mean, I think that this is one of the better fights on the card. Not that they're all not good, but I play favorites too. Cub Swanson and Max Holloway, holy expletive. This is going to be a fight. And I think Cub Swanson really needs to win because Max Holloway's been throwing his leather hard and throwing it fast and knocking him down and knocking out the wins. Max Holloway has looked nothing short of spectacular lately. And Cub Swanson, though he has fought stiffer competition, I feel that Max Holloway's a good test for Cub Swanson, a very good test. My way in on this one, I'm going to say Cub Swanson.
And I'm going to have to agree with you. I think Swanson, more than anything, as much as I like Holloway, and and part of me will be rooting for you, bro, I have to go with experience. One thing, I do play a little bit favorites when it comes to camps. Everybody knows how the Greg Jackson Winklejohn camp is. Yeah. Their fighters are monsters, okay? And more than anything, I think Cub Swanson, with his unorthodox angles, and more than anything, is not afraid to take this fight to the ground, even though he prefer the stand-up. He can definitely switch it up and change up levels to actually confuse Holloway. And I won't say pull the TKO, but more than anything, probably pull that unanimous decision victory.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Swanson TKO.
All right, the next fight is the co-main event. And at first, folks, I was really, really looking forward to this fight because it was supposed to be the number 1, Ronaldo Jacare Souza, versus the number 6, Yoel Soldier of God Romero. But due to injury, Yoel has to bow out, so they brought in Chris Camozzi. Now, where can I begin on complaining about this fight? Okay, number 1, I'm going to start with Camozzi, okay? Nothing against you, dude, but you are on a 4-fight losing streak before you were released from the UFC. You won 2, maybe 3 fights on the regional circuit because I've been trying to keep tabs. I know about at least 2. One of them made even the Instagram little knockout trendy little video. But ultimately, okay, this guy's getting brought back into the UFC, and his first fight is the number 1 guy in the division, okay? Let alone the guy who started to hand him his first loss in his 4-fight losing streak. So if anybody has a big task ahead of them, right now trying to prove themselves or why they deserve to be on the roster and why they deserve to be in the light heavyweight division, Camozzi is that person.
Absolutely.
Because he has a huge task and ahead of him in trying to beat the number one ranking guy in Ronaldo Souza. Let's begin. Jiu-Jitsu world champion, Abu Dhabi Combat Club, 2-time champion, okay? Overall is 21-3, won 11 of his last 12, okay? Riding a 7-fight win streak, okay? 4 of them in the octagon, okay? Because remember, he was also part of the Strikeforce acquisition into the UFC, okay? The biggest problem with Souza has been himself. He's been plagued with injuries. Almost every fight he fights a guy, he ends up with a horrible injury afterwards. But that's his biggest dilemma, himself. I don't see him having any problems with Camozzi. Camozzi, number one, is shown himself to be a semi-well-rounded fighter. He can defend against the takedowns, but against world-class grapplers such as Jacare, I see you repeating exactly what happened before. Submission loss.
Yeah. Mr. MMA is in my mind right now. Souza is an impressive fighter on a 7-fight win streak, as you said, Mr. MMA. And you almost feel bad for... what's his name again?
Camozzi?
Camozzi. It reminds me of Aini Camozzi, that reggae hip hopper from the 1990s. I'm old, guys. Anyway,
so much like
I think that this is one of those fights that Mr. MMA likes to call a jobber fight. Sometimes the UFC will throw a bone to a fighter. Jacare Souza needs no such bone, but is deserving of one, so why not? He gets his payday, even though his original opponent didn't make the fight. So that's good on the UFC for finding an opponent for him on a short notice. But it's bad for his opponent. Souza is an animal, and I'm going to have to agree with Mr. MMA on this one. I'm going to say Souza by submission.
And I want to add one other tidbit, because before the UFC threw Camozzi at Jacare actually suggested of taking Michael Bisping, who's presently right now ranked number 9.
Yeah.
Now, I don't get me wrong. I don't know why you would want to face the number 9 guy when you're the number 1 guy. And facing Yoel Morero in itself was a big statement if he would have won that. It would have locked down hands down that he would have gotten the winner out of Weidman and Vitor Belfort in May. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, too. I don't want to say and take anything away from Bisping either, because if you look at Bisping's stats, this man has gone against some of the best grapplers in the world and kept the fight standing and still knocked them out with their hands. So Jacare right now is in that transition where he's trying to prove to people that he can use his hands and as well mold it into his grappling game. Now, we already know Bisping's getting ready to face CB Holloway at UFC 186. So that's why they brought in Camozzi. But like Nathan said, this is a jobber fight. It upsets me. It disappoints me. Yoel Morero, please heal up fast. And hey, if Camozzi brings out an upset, who knows? That'd be
very impressive.
So, but no matter what, folks, if you definitely want to see at least a show, a clinic, a grappling clinic, tune in for their co-main event, because Souza's going to do it again.
Yeah, I agree. And the main event?
Oh, yes. Yes, the number 2 in the light heavyweight division, Lyoto, the Dragon Machida, versus the number 4, Luke Rockhold. Yes. Let me take a deep breath on this one, because this one gives me tingles.
Please, Mr. MMA, don't hurt him.
Okay. I am so amped for this fight. I've got to be honest with you. This is the closest thing that we can get to a Bruce Lee versus Chuck Norris in an MMA cage. And I know I'm probably going to get some slack for that, but hey, let's be honest. Both of these guys are extremely elite strikers. They're at the top of the division. They're ranked number 2 and number 4 for a reason, folks. Whether you accept these rankings or not, some of them do have some great basis in it. Lyoto Machida, since losing to Jones, has been 2-1 in the light heavyweight division, but 3-1 in the middleweight division. Okay, his last victory was a first-round TKO of CB Holloway. So more than anything right now, an impressive win over Luke Rockhold would definitely solidify him to be next in line for the winner out of Weidman and Belfort. Rockhold has won 11 of his last 12 fights. He's riding a 3-fight win streak. The most recent victory over Michael Bisping, submission victory, which I was talking him up before, because Bisping's usually really great about the grapplers. But you know what? It happens to everybody, and I'm still behind you, Bisping. Always a fan. But back to Rockhold. No matter what, both these guys have a great repertoire and a great resume. No matter what, they're both elite grapplers. They're both elite strikers. But between the two of them, one of them has shown a weakness, and that's Machida. Machida has always shown himself to be one-dimensional. Because he knows he's such an exceptional striker, he seems to focus on everything that keeps him on the stand-up. And don't get me wrong, that is a sound philosophy. It's a logical philosophy. But sometimes when you're in the sport of mixed martial arts, you have to mix it up. It's part of any offense. You have to, more than anything, be able to change levels. You have to be able to keep your opponent guessing. And Machida doesn't do that anymore. And it was more than painfully obvious when Weidman stayed in the pocket their whole fight and dominated and didn't let him set up. Rockhold has everything in his resume to do the same thing. And like I said, this is going to be an awesome fight because anybody who makes that one split-second mistake could be the loser. I'm going to be honest with you, my weigh-in, I don't care. We all win. If you think about the fight on this damn card, we get to watch two blonde shells go at it. We get to watch two freaking elite strikers in Swanson and Max Holloway duke it out. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see two world-class grapplers go at it in Jacare Souza and Yoel Morero, but we still might get an interesting fight because, and who knows, I think maybe Chris Camozzi might want to, at least raise his stock.
He's going to have to
this is at least his chance that even if he loses, raise your stock.
Yeah.
Okay? And then the main event, like I said, this is going to be an awesome card. But if I had to choose somebody, I'm going to have to go with Rockhold. Okay. I think Rockhold, no matter what, like I said, has more in his repertoire and can actually stay in that pocket and not really be afraid of Lyoto Machida's counterpunching or counter-hitting.
Yeah, well, I'm equally excited for this fight. I am so excited for this fight, and I don't know, the Bruce Lee thing. Do you guys even get that reference anymore? I mean, we're old, right? That happened in the 70s. Anyway.
Anyway, old, man.
I'm going to say, let's not forget Lyoto Machida is one of the most elusive fighters in the UFC. It's easier to say Rockhold's going to hit Lyoto Machida than it will be for Rockhold to actually hit Lyoto Machida. Lyoto Machida is a one-time champion at the light heavyweight and looking to become the middleweight champion here eventually. And I think that that's what he wants for his legacy. He wants to be one of the few men in the UFC to have held belts at both weight classes. He looked fantastic, in my opinion, the latter rounds against Weidman. True, he did get caught because he stayed in the pocket. And it's true, he can be one-dimensional. But I think he learned from that. I think he built from that. I think he's ready to fight from that. And I'm going to go and weigh in with Lyoto Machida. Lyoto Machida by decision.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, hey, guys, that's all the time we've got for today. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to click subscribe down there in the corner. And go to the comments section. Why don't you weigh in? We're anxious to hear your opinion. How do you think the fight cards are going to play out? Our card picks will be coming up in just a second. Tell us what you think of them, whether you agree, disagree, think we're awesome, think we're idiots. Who knows? Anyway, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Weigh In.